I want to introduce our presenter, Michelle Simpson. She's from the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships, and we really appreciate her taking the time to talk about the topic of exploring scholarships, specifically looking at the Bronco Scholarship Portal. And we want to highly encourage everybody here to apply for scholarships. And if there's any way that any one of us can help you in making that happen, please reach out to your respective programs for assistance. So without further ado, Michelle, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Lauren. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here so we can get started. You guys can see the other side, right? Not the PowerPoint. Let me change it. One second. Okay, that's a little bit better. All right, so we're going to get started on the Introduction to Scholarship Fest. So my background is similar. Scholarship Fest is really our name for our application cycle at Cal Poly Pomona. So it runs October 1st through March 2nd of every year. If those dates sound familiar, they are, because they run concurrent with our California Dream Act application and the FAFSA application period. So what are scholarships? Scholarships fall underneath the umbrella of financial aid, and they must be coordinated with other financial aid that you're receiving, such as federal Pell Grants, state university grants, and they fall under what we call gift aid. So gift aid is typically money that you do not have to repay, whereas self-help aid is considered work study or federal student loans. We always want to promote some of the benefits for applying for scholarships. So if you are working, you could potentially reduce your work hours during the school year. You end up reducing student loan debt. And it's one thing that you can put on your resume. So that's nice if you become a scholar of any one of the scholarships. And you could also indicate it on your graduate school application if you're planning to pursue your master's or post-baccalaureate academic career. And now we want to jump into CPP scholarships and where you go and how you apply. So if you would like to begin searching for scholarships, the best thing to do is to visit our website, and it is cpp.edu/scholarships. And once you visit that web page, you're going to land on this page here. And so we have it sort of laid out for you by section. You would click on Cal Poly Pomona Scholarships to get started. And once you click on that, you're going to see a button that says Apply for Scholarships Now. If you would like to, you can watch the short promotional video that we have regarding what we call the Bronco Scholarship Portal, or BSP. And it just kind of gives you a quick overview of the portal and what to expect. But if you're ready to dive in and start applying, you would click on that Apply for Scholarships Now button. Once you click on that button, you're going to see our homepage, or the Bronco Scholarship Portal. And essentially, this is going to list all of the opportunities that are currently available and open for you to begin applying. So to get started, you would click on the Sign In button that is located in the top right of the page. And then you're going to use your CPP credentials to log in and gain access. So when you log into the portal, you will land on the general scholarship application. So you must complete this application in order to be considered for scholarship opportunities. And the way that it's set up, I know that the photo here to the right is a little small, but essentially you're going to ask or answer questions rather about any club involvement that you have, whether it be at CPP or any involvement you've had within the last 3 years with any sort of organizations. If you do not have any involvement, that is okay. There is a box for you to check that. And then we're going to ask you to write a personal statement. The screenshot here shows in 1,000 words or less, but it is revised to 750 words or less. And we ask you to cover any leadership activities you've had, your academic goals, career objectives, and we also ask you to include any additional information you feel is relevant. So your time to sort of shine and talk about yourself. So now we move into outside scholarships. And the reason why we include this is CPP scholarships are very important and we want you to apply, but we also want you to consider any outside scholarships that you might come across if you qualify. So if you're interested in reviewing some of those resources, you would just go back to the same homepage, and that again is www.cpp.edu/scholarships. And you're going to go ahead and click on the box there that says outside scholarships. So to begin doing that, we have a list of search engines that you can sort of navigate to. And we also get that question about scholarship opportunities that are available for students that do not have citizenship. So we do provide a search engine if you're interested in that. And it is titled Immigrants Rising. So we have a list of graduate scholarships and a list of undergraduate scholarships. It's a good resource to use. With outside scholarships, we also want you to be aware of scholarship scams and just some things you should never have to do to apply for scholarships. So very important. You always want to remember there should never be a fee to apply for any scholarship. So if you see that, that is a red flag. Go ahead and exit out of that website. Make sure you never provide any credit card information or any information that's relevant to your social security number or ITIN information, your tax ID. Never provide that. You should never have to provide your banking information either. So, you know, routing number, those types of things, those are not necessary to apply for a scholarship. Along with any fee, you should never have to pay a processing or application fee. So nothing should be submitted to or paid in order to submit your application. And you should never have to register or pay to get access to a database because we have these resources available to you. So if you sort of navigate into those waters, we always encourage you to just close out the website. And just be mindful of random organizations claiming that you've won a scholarship in your email. I know sometimes these come through like congratulations and you say, well, I never applied to this. We always encourage you, feel free if you want us to give it an extra look in the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships, you're more than welcome to forward us the email and we can look it over as well, just to be sure. Our email address, which will probably show up at the end of this presentation though, is scholarships@cpp.edu. So we're here to help just in case you have questions about something you may have received. Oftentimes we get questions about where students will send their scholarship check, and this is strictly for those outside scholarships. So again, companies like Coca-Cola or Chick-fil-A, if you've received a check, and you want to know where to mail it, we're providing you the mailing address here to our campus. If you would rather hand deliver it to campus, you're more than welcome to. You would deliver it to student accounting and cashiering. And I provided the hyperlink here, and we're more than happy to provide a copy of this presentation afterwards, but you can click on the link and you can review the contact information, office hours, as well as phone number for student accounting and cashiering. If you prefer, or if it is after hours, you can drop the check in the payment box that's located outside of the Student Services building. I know we just came back to campus recently, but for those of you who have had the opportunity, that building resembles a spaceship, looks like a UFO, so you can just drop it in. We always want to be sure that name and Bronco ID number are included and clearly printed on the check. Believe it or not, we often get checks without this information, and so it delays the process for us to get the funds to you. So very important to include that. So now we'll move into the essay, letters of recommendation, and thank you letter. And this is specific to applying for scholarships, whether it be through the Bronco Scholarship Portal or outside. Some of the things we want to keep in mind when writing the essay. You do want to ensure that you follow the prompt and other instructions exactly. So when you start applying, you might notice a question that says, in 500 words or less, please tell us something about yourself. So you want to ensure that you follow whatever guidelines are provided. Be clear and concise with one central thought. And you do want to focus on your strengths and turn any problems you may have or weaknesses into success stories. And you want to use actual detailed examples from your own life to support your claims. And be sure to proofread, proofread, and proofread. On campus or virtually, we do have access to the Learning Resource Center. US students can use those services. There's tutors available. And in addition to those that can assist you with sort of strengthening your essay if you feel that you need it. And later on in the presentation, I will provide that information to the Learning Resource Center, but they are willing and available. So please don't hesitate if you do need that assistance. Some of the things you want to avoid. You want to avoid using words from a thesaurus that are new to you. Although it's nice to learn new words, you just want to ensure if you are going to do this that you have someone read it over to just make sure that the flow is there and that the word actually makes sense. You don't want to reiterate what is already stated on your resume. So you sort of want to fluff it up a little bit, add some originality, choose additional stories that you can tell to the scholarship committee. We love to learn about students. We love to hear about your accomplishments, your achievements, and even any challenges that you've gone through. So make sure you just make it about yourself, let yourself shine. And you don't want to write a generic essay for every application. So try to adapt your personal statement to the scholarship essay prompts for individual opportunities. So that's very important. So this is touching further onto the Writing Resource Center. I know here in the screenshot, they still have up the online and hybrid formats for fall 2021. As of this morning, this information was still available. So it seems like you can still contact them via email, or you can use CPP Connect, or you can email them to schedule an appointment if you so choose. So again, I encourage this. I've had meetings with the Learning Resource Center and they're very excited and open to having students stop by so they can help with the scholarship writing process. Next, we want to provide some tips for gathering letters of recommendation. So we understand that this can be a little bit intimidating, especially for our new students who have not had a chance yet to sort of develop academic relationships with their lecturers or faculty, but we still want to encourage you to do it. So if you can, we always recommend cultivating as best as possible, even in the online format, those academic relationships with faculty, even if it's a matter of meeting during office hours or just letting them know that you have intent on applying for scholarships. Can you use them as a recommender? You want to try to choose a recommender who knows you best if that is available to you, and provide clear instructions and deadlines to the recommender. They may be receiving multiple requests, so it's nice to let them know that, hey, I might need this in by 2 weeks from now. We always encourage you, if the deadline says May 1st, try to ask for that letter of recommendation to be submitted 2 weeks prior to that deadline, just so you have a cushion in case it doesn't get in. You want to ask early and provide enough time for completion. So that's really important. We know that all of our day-to-days are somewhat generally busy, and so just giving someone that extra time to complete is always very nice and considerate. Try to provide materials to the recommender to assist them with your request. If it's easier, like if you're applying on the Bronco Scholarship Portal, you can always, each scholarship opportunity has a unique URL, so you can always copy and paste the URL link in an email to the recommender that you're asking for this letter of recommendation from, so that they can view the criteria, get to know what you're applying for, those types of things. You can always provide a summary of your career or educational goals if you feel like that will help the recommender write the letter on your behalf. And we always recommend that you stay connected with the person that's providing you the letter of recommendation and provide them with updates, because they've taken the time to write this letter on your behalf. And especially if you do get the scholarship, it will make them feel great inside to know that they helped you reach a milestone. And so we go into the importance of the thank you letter. So for some of the scholarship opportunities within the Bronco Scholarship Portal, a thank you letter is required. And so the purpose of the thank you letter is just to let donors know that you are very grateful for being able to have the opportunity to receive the scholarship. It also lets them know that you appreciate their level of support. So typically, the thank you letter, we provide you with a prompt of things that we would like you to address in the thank you letter. But if the prompt is not there, you can feel free to start writing away. You just want to write clearly and concisely. And similar to the essay, you want to double check your letter for any typographical and grammatical errors. And you want to express enthusiasm and be sincere. So now we'll introduce you to the scholarship process. So assuming that you all do great and you get a scholarship, you get offered a scholarship, what happens next? Most of the scholarships right now on the Bronco Scholarship Portal are for, or will be applied to the fall 2022 and spring 2023. So essentially you're applying now for the future. So what happens? If we are to receive a scholarship check from an outside organization like Pepsi or Coca-Cola, that check comes to our university first directly to the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships. If this is a scholarship offered through CPP, we work with the departments to provide us with the names of the recipients and the amounts that they're going to receive. We will review the eligibility that of the scholarship, making sure once we receive your name that you're, let's say, enrolled full time, or that you are meeting the minimum 2.0 GPA, whatever the case may be, we ensure you're meeting those requirements. If for some reason you're not meeting the requirements, we contact the organization or we contact the department to let them know. There are times where we do receive exceptions to post scholarships. For those who are not meeting some of the minimum requirements, it's just a case-by-case basis. So once we confirm you're eligible, we'll begin to post the scholarship to your financial aid award summary. And that's the summary that you are able to view on Bronco Direct. Funds are typically released and applied to outstanding balances first for the current term. And then you receive a payment in the form of a physical check if you're not signed up for direct deposit, or via direct deposit. If you don't have any outstanding balances, there's nothing to be deducted, so you receive the funds in full. We have an important note here at the bottom about financial aid, grants and loans, indicating that they may need to be adjusted if need is not available. And I'm going to dive into what need is considered here shortly. So oftentimes we get the question about need and how does a scholarship impact my financial aid? So in a nutshell, the total amount of assistance from all of your financial aid sources, so grants, student loans, other scholarships you may be receiving, it cannot exceed the Cal Poly Pomona yearly cost of attendance. So all forms of financial aid, including outside scholarships, third-party payments, and tuition and fee waivers, must be coordinated with your financial aid package. So in simple terms, the cost of attendance, it consists of tuition and mandatory campus fees, books and supplies, room and board, personal expenses, and transportation. So all of that dictates your cost of attendance. And the way that need is determined is we look at the cost of attendance and we subtract it from the expected family contribution number. The expected family contribution number is derived from the FAFSA or California Dream Act application. So we subtract that and then we get your need, and that tells us how much aid or outside sources you are eligible to receive up to. Next here we have just some helpful links. These are some common links that you might use as you navigate the scholarship process. So our scholarship email address is scholarships@cpp.edu. If you have questions about a scholarship that you're receiving, or you're on the Bronco Scholarship Portal and you wanted to clarify some information, feel free to email us. We're happy to help, happy to assist. Bronco Scholarship Portal, if you just want to dive directly in and use the website, the scholarships website, you can go to this URL here. It's a fairly long, but it is csupomona.academicworks.com. The Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships webpage has some great resources, not just related to scholarship, but everything else financial aid. So feel free to navigate there if you would like to. And I've also provided a link here for a scholarship promo video and a video link on how to apply to scholarships. So again, we can get a copy of this presentation out to you so you can click directly on these hyperlinks and just go to the site. And that's it. I think we can open it up now for questions or comments.
If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can drop it in the chat and we'll read it out loud for you. I'm going to go ahead and start with the question, just kind of give them an opportunity to maybe write that question in the chat. That important note suggested that sometimes their aid would need to be adjusted, or their need would be adjusted. Can you explain that a little more?
Yes. So let's say we have a traditional financial aid package, a student who's receiving federal Pell Grant, a state grant of some sort, and student loans. And they have already received aid and up to their cost of attendance, let's say it's $18,000. A scholarship comes in for $5,000. So what we do is we look at the student's need. If it's zero, we reach out to student. We let them know that in order to post the $5,000 scholarship, we're going to have to potentially reduce the student loans, unless there is a process where we can increase the cost of attendance depending on the circumstance. So we would then ask student if they would like to consider this process, and it can potentially, maybe they have expenses that have, the financial aid is sort of a package deal. There are different circumstances. You might have rent that goes beyond the published cost of attendance. We take that into consideration, or other miscellaneous childcare expenses. And so if we can, we work with students to not have to reduce the student loans, because although they are considered a form of debt, we find that our students may have borrowed the loan because they truly need it. So we don't want to reduce it if we don't have to. But if there is not a way to increase their cost of attendance, it is something that we will have to do. So we would reduce the student loan to essentially make room for the $5,000 scholarship.
Thank you. Yeah, so you don't want to lose that aid.
Right.
You don't want it to supplant any other aid. You want it to supplement the aid that you're receiving. And so you can work with Office of Financial Aid to determine how to do that.
Absolutely.
As Michelle said, you could change your cost of attendance, or you can reduce your loan. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I think we have a question here. You mentioned that the scholarships we apply for now would count for the following school year. Given this, should we still be applying for these scholarships if we plan to graduate the same year?
Very good question. So if you're planning, if this spring term is your last term, there are some, and I would be referencing spring 22, right? So if you're applying now and you plan on graduating this term, we do, believe it or not, have some opportunities that are open for the current year. You would just see on the scholarship description, it will say award period 21-22. Although not the majority, there are a handful. So you can feel free to apply to those, because that is under the assumption that you are still in the current year and you are eligible for those. But for the award periods that say 22-23, you would not be eligible for those if you're graduating in spring 22.
What happens if you don't receive any student loans?
In terms of that need? Or,
yeah, I think that would be an adjusted the cost of attendance, right?
Yeah, so typically if you haven't, or if you've declined your student loans, that works in your favor, because then your need is showing a greater amount. So we do have those situations. Usually under normal circumstances, the federal Pell Grant plus the state grants are going to run about $12,000. And if the cost of attendance is $18,000, that gives you room for any sort of outside scholarships. We do have unique scenarios where students may only be receiving a federal Pell Grant. And so that is a disclaimer, where if students only receiving a federal Pell Grant, they can typically receive scholarships that exceed the cost of attendance. There's a caveat, there's a lot of waves to financial aid, but the reason for that is that the federal Pell Grant is not considered a need-based grant. It's based on merit.
That one is new to me. Good
Yeah,
to
so
know.
many layers. Yeah,
Right. So don't just give up. Like work
exactly.
with somebody to
Check
find
in
out.
first. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a web of resources and
Yeah.
answers.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Any other questions? I do want to mention that on Tuesday, Dustin and Denise will be presenting on writing scholarship, winning scholarship essays. So Michelle touched on that, the do's and don'ts. He gave some good suggestions. And so on Tuesday, we'll go even deeper into that and share some like sample essays and, you know, what makes a strong essay for these scholarships. So if you're interested, please, you know, register to attend that on Tuesday. I'll give you one more chance. Anybody have questions? I mean, it's hard to get financial aid staff, you know, to get their time because they're overworked. So you have somebody here right now.
You still have time to apply too for scholarships. So remember March 2nd. Just continue to go in and check everything out. Check your recommended opportunities when you log into the portal, because those might show you some that you might have overlooked. You want to apply to those.
And is it possible that there might be a few straggling scholarships that have a past March 2nd due date? I know that's what you guys try to work with. But
Yeah, you know, we said that we would assess on March 2nd if there are opportunities that either have low applicant pools or other circumstances we want to evaluate, because we are here, of course, for students. We want to ensure they have the opportunity. But I think we'll have a better understanding by March 2nd. We do typically see that last minute push of students applying 2-3 days before the deadline, but we want to ensure that the applicant pools are healthy. So the director and myself will probably be reviewing those numbers in the next week and a half.
and Casey dropped a comment that there does seem to be some that are due in April in the portal. So
that's a good point. That is our CSU system-wide. So those are not the CPP the CPP on-campus scholarships. Those are the scholarships offered at 23 CSUs. So we keep that extended, and thank you for bringing that up. We keep that extended because we want more students to apply. We didn't get the announcement for those until 2 weeks ago. So we want to keep a larger window open and give you an opportunity. Those are great opportunities as well, by the way. So take advantage of that.
yeah, and I also want to highlight something that you mentioned earlier about when you get a scholarship, it is something that you can typically, you know, include in your resume. And it's
Yeah.
one of those things where, you know, you apply to a scholarship, there's some prestige that comes with it, even if it's not a large amount. And so you start basically building that resume and sometimes it just leads to other opportunities as well. You never know. Like I applied for one scholarship and somehow it led to me, you know, meeting a famous comedian and so forth. So sometimes, you know, even if it doesn't lead to more money, there's some awesome opportunities and you definitely build up some clout. So you know, want to encourage you to apply to them. And even if it says that you're not eligible, if it's allowing you to apply, you might want to go ahead and move forward with that application as well. Because as Michelle just indicated, sometimes there aren't enough applicants. And so you don't know who you're competing against.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
I don't see any more comments or questions in the chat. I don't know if any of the other staff members have any comments that they want to make before we wrap this up. All right. Well, I want to thank Michelle for taking the time to present this workshop for all our programs today. As she mentioned, she'll get a copy of the presentation to us, and then we will forward it to all the attendees so that you have access to all those links. So thank you. And thank you to all you students who attended as well. So everybody enjoy the rest of your afternoon and have a great weekend because we're getting really close to the weekend.
Thank
Thank
you
you again,
all.
Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Have a great day.